Death has always been one of horror's most universal themes. It's the one faith we all share, the shadow that follows us no matter where we go. But what makes Sundo by Topol Lee stand out among Filipino horror films, it's not just its ghost or jump scares. It's how it frames death as something inevitable, inescapable, and deeply personal.
Espiritong kalaban natin, Romano, hindi tao. Magagawa niya lahat ng pwede niyang gawin. Hindi natin siya matatakasan.
Released in 2009, Sundo turns the supernatural into a haunting meditation on destiny, survival, and the terrifying truth that no matter how hard we try, we can't outrun death. In this video, we'll examine how Sundo utilizes folklore, suspense, and tragedy to explore the inevitability of death and why it remains one of the most memorable entries in Philippine horror cinema. Let's talk about Sundo. Let me tell you the story. Sundo begins with a chilling reminder that death is never far. Vanessa, haunted by the ghost of her long-dead husband, meets a violent end. From here, we are drawn into the story of Romano, a retired soldier scarred by his battle wounds and the discovery of a terrifying gift. He can now see ghosts. But these are not just any spirits, they are Sundo, the souls assigned to fetch the living into the afterlife. Romano's peace is interrupted by his blind sister, Isabel, who convinces him to return to Manila with the help of Luella, a childhood friend carrying her unspoken secrets. Along the way, they are joined by a small group of strangers, an actress, a widow and her nephew, and a loyal driver. At first, their journey seems ordinary until Romano's visions begin to bleed through reality. Averted accidents, fleeting apparitions, and the creeping certainty that death is circling them all. The rules soon become clear. Because Romano interfered with faith and prevented their deaths in an accident, the balance must be restored.
Kung ganon, nakaligtas kayo sa isang tiyak na sakuna. Naniningil na sa inyo si kamatayan.
The Sundo, manifestations of the dead loved ones of each character, stalk them one by one. Spike through the skull, a surge of electricity. Each death comes with a cruel personal twist, as though faith is reminding them that there is no escaping the death of life. The dread deepens when Romano realizes even Isabel is not safe. And worse, that her death is tied to Luella's darkest secret, a secret embodied by the ghost of a crying infant. Betrayal, grief, and inevitability clash in a final twist that seals everyone's faith. In the end, Romano becomes a Sundo, trapped in the cycle he desperately tried to resist. Sundo closes with the chilling revelation that death cannot be cheated, and that the moment you see your Sundo, your days among the living are numbered. At its core, Sundo is a meditation on inevitability. The concept of the Sundo, spirits of loved ones who come to fetch you at the moment of death, is terrifying precisely because it removes the illusion of control. Romano and his companions believe that by escaping an accident, they have outwitted death. But the film makes it brutally clear. Death is not something you can cheat. It is a debt that will always be collected. This idea resonates deeply with Filipino culture, where death is often seen not just as an end, but as a reunion with family who have gone before us. The chilling twist here is that reunion becomes horror. The familiar faces of parents, siblings, even unborn children are twisted into harbingers of doom. That's what makes Sundo so unsettling. It takes something comforting, the presence of loved ones, and transforms it into a reminder that faith cannot be outrun. While Sundo builds its horror on death's inevitability, it layers in something even more personal: guilt. Each of the characters isn't just haunted by random ghosts. They are pursued by the very people who tied them to unresolved sins and secrets. Take Luella, for instance. Her Sundo is the unborn child she aborted while in medical school. The ghost isn't just a supernatural presence. It's the manifestation of a past decision she has never fully reconciled with. Christina Sundo, the twin sister she never knew, symbolizes a hidden truth about identity and family. And then there's Romano, whose final betrayal comes from his own sister, Isabel. Except it's not really Isabel who betrays him, but Luella. This isn't just about jump scares, it's about how the skeletons we hide in our closets never really stay buried. In Sundo, the past is not passive. It actively comes to collect. Every unresolved guilt, every secret covered up is waiting in the shadows to pull these characters down. One of the most fascinating parts of Sundo is how it builds its horror on Filipino beliefs about death and the afterlife. The idea of a Sundo, a departed loved one who comes to fetch you when it's your time, is something many Filipinos grew up hearing. It's both comforting and terrifying. Comforting because you won't be alone in your final moments, but terrifying because it reminds us that no matter what, death is inevitable. The movie takes this folklore and turns it into a relentless force. Romano and the others try to cheat fate by avoiding the accident, but in doing so, they only delayed the inevitable. Death in this worldview isn't something you can bargain with or escape from. It's part of a larger balance that demands to be kept. What Sundo does so well is tap into a very Filipino fear, not just about dying, but of leaving life unfinished. We want to live long enough to care for our families, to fulfill our duties, to leave something behind. That's why the image of loved ones appearing as harbingers of death hits so hard. It's not a faceless Grim Reaper. It's your sister, your grandfather, even a child you never got to meet. Death, in this sense, is deeply personal. While Sundo thrives on supernatural attention, its most chilling moments comes not from the ghost, but from Luella's betrayal. The reveal that she killed Isabel to cheat death is shocking, not only because it feels like a twist, but because it reflects a much darker truth. Sometimes, the greatest danger doesn't come from the spirits or fate, but from people we trust. Luella's desperation is human. She didn't want to die, and she clung to the belief that sacrificing someone else could save her. But that act of betrayal makes her just as terrifying as the supernatural forces at play. It forces us to question how far a person might go when backed into a corner by fear, and whether our bonds with loved ones can survive when self-preservation is on the line. This theme elevates the horror from being just about death to being about morality. Sundo isn't only asking, what if death is inevitable? It's also asking, what will you do when death is at your doorstep? In Luella's case, her choice to betray turns her into a monster, proving that sometimes human weakness can be just as terrifying as the supernatural. At first glance, Sundo looks like just another supernatural horror film, filled with jump scares and ghostly figures. But when you peel back the layers, it becomes something more unsettling. It's a story about inevitability, that death has a claim on all of us, no matter how much we try to resist. It's about grief, about how we carry our loved ones with us, even when they've passed on. And it's about betrayal, the kind that reveals the darkest corners of human nature when survival is at stake. What makes Sundo memorable is not just the presence of the ghosts, but the way it uses them as mirrors to human fear and frailty. Each Sundo isn't just a supernatural fetcher of souls. They're reminders that no one escapes their fate, and that sometimes the real horror comes from within us. In the end, Sundo reminds us that death isn't the only thing to fear. What's truly terrifying is how people choose to face it.
Alam mo, hindi naman ako takot mamatay eh. Eh, ano mo magagawa kung oras ko na, di ba? Makikipagsabunutan ba ako kay kamatayan?